The crisp autumn air of Crestwood University bit at my skin as I walked through the hallowed gates. Crestwood, a name whispered with reverence, a beacon of academic excellence, and as I was quickly learning, a breeding ground for the rich. The security gate alone looked like the entrance to a billionaire convention. Sleek black SUVs rolled in one after another, engines purring and sports cars gleamed under the sun. Red, silver, midnight blue. So polished I could see my confused face reflected on their hoods. My name is Edwin Kerner, and I had just secured a full scholarship. A lifeline thrown to a working-class alpha like myself. I was ready to work hard, to bury myself in books, and to make the most of this incredible opportunity. What I wasn't prepared for was the cult of personality surrounding Desmond Scott. From the moment I stepped onto campus, I turned slowly, genuinely alarmed. For half a second, I wondered if a celebrity had mistakenly wandered into the campus. Or maybe a head of state. Then I saw him. Students parted like the sea, phones already raised, eyes glowing like they were witnessing a miracle. His name was on everyone's lips. Desmond this, Desmond that. He was the epitome of wealth, privilege, and frankly, arrogance. He moved through the crowd like a god, trailed by a gaggle of admirers, both male and female, all vying for his attention. The Omegas practically swooned in his presence, and even the Alphas seemed to defer to him. It was nauseating. So that's what the noise is about? I scoffed. The girl next to me gasped like I'd committed a crime. You don't know him? I mean, he looks expensive but nonchalant. I said honestly, watching Desmond walk past without sparing the crowd a glance. Her jaw dropped. I shrugged, turning back toward my hostel. Whoever he was, he clearly wasn't my problem. I had a room to find, classes to survive, and a scholarship to protect with my life. Finding my room took longer than expected because apparently Crestwood believed in mystery. The hallway stretched endlessly, doors lined up like they were daring me to guess wrong. By the time I finally found room 307, I was already questioning my life choices. I pushed the door open and froze. Someone was already inside. A guy sat at the desk by the window, glasses perched neatly on his nose, books stacked with military precision. He looked calm. "Oh, sorry," I blurted. "I think I got the wrong room." He looked up slowly, eyes sharp but not unfriendly. "Unless you're here to steal my bed, you're in the right place." I glanced at the number again. It was accurate. "I'm Edwin Kerner, a fresher." He blinked, then smiled. "Well, that's funny. Because I'm not." That made me pause. "You're not a fresher?" "Nope. Second year." I stared at him from head to toe. No arrogance. No flashy clothes. "You look like one," I said before I could stop myself. He laughed. "I get that a lot. My name's Jace, a beta." We shook hands and immediately I felt lighter. As I unpacked my things, I asked the obvious question. "So, second year and still in fresher housing?" He leaned back in his chair. "Long story short, my dad passed away, then my uncle stepped in. He's rich, pays my tuition. But not rich enough to buy me a better room, apparently." He started explaining the school rules, curfews, attendance, the unspoken hierarchy. Apparently, Crestwood didn't just run on grades, it ran on status. "Rich kids here don't just have money," he said. "They have influence. Professors, boards, sponsors. One wrong step and your life becomes a case study in regret." I nodded seriously. Scholarship students didn't get second chances. Jace adjusted his glasses. "But don't worry. You seem focused and studious." "I hate slow people." "Same," I said quickly. "I didn't come here to babysit anyone." He smiled approvingly. I liked him already. Then curiosity got the better of me. "So, what was with the cheering earlier?" His entire expression changed to excitement. "You saw him, didn't you?" "Yeah," I replied. Jace slapped his desk. "That's Desmond Scott." He lowered his voice. "When I first came here, I was shocked too. He barely comes to class. Doesn't attend events unless he wants to. And still, everyone worships him." His grandparents co-founded the school. His grandfather was an S-tier alpha. His dad too. The Scott name basically built Crestwood. I hummed. "So he's rich. Generationally dangerous, Jace corrected. Just stay away from him. And the rich kids. Trust me, Edwin. If you cross them, they'll make your life a living hell. I smiled. Not because I was scared, but because I wasn't. Thanks for the warning, I said calmly. But I think I'll survive. Jace frowned. You're brave. I didn't correct him. What I didn't say was this. I might come from a poor family. I might be here on scholarship. But I was an alpha. A proud one. And I had no interest in worshipping some overhyped enigma who thought the world bent at his feet. Money didn't intimidate me. Titles didn't impress me. I finished arranging my bed, lay back, and stared at the ceiling until sleep came. I woke up that morning with one goal in mind, to look my best. If Crestwood thrived on intimidation, then I planned to walk into my first class like I owned the hallway, scholarship or not. I showered, styled my hair neatly, and picked my cleanest outfit. Simple, sharp, and confident. When I stepped out, Jace gave me a once-over while grabbing his bag. Wow. You look amazing. Jace complimented. Thank you. I replied with a sign of relief. We walked together until we reached the campus coffee shop. You coming? He asked. I hesitated for exactly half a second. Yeah. I'll grab one too. But that was a big mistake. I grabbed a cup, took my first sip, and followed Jace's directions toward the academic building. He then signaled me and walked towards the other direction where he was having his class. I walked amidst the other students who I guessed were also in the same department as me. I was halfway up the stairs, sipping my coffee like a responsible adult, when my foot slipped. Time slowed and my body tilted forward. Before I knew it, the coffee spilled on someone. I froze. The world went silent. Slowly I looked up. Desmond stood right in front of me. His black jacket, immaculate just seconds ago, was now stained. Behind him stood several students, all dressed sharply, looking like they were ready to defend him with their lives. Oh my God, I blurted. I'm so sorry, I swear it was an accident. Phones came out immediately. I could practically hear social media salivating. Desmond looked down at his jacket. Then at me. His eyes were cold, furious, sharp enough to cut glass. Do you know how much this jacket costs? I heard his voice for the first time. I swallowed. I'm so sorry. I'll pay for it somehow. He scoffed. Maybe in another lifetime. He took a step closer. The students shifted behind him. If you were truly sorry, Desmond said, voice low, you'd clean it up with your shirt. My blood boiled cause of the embarrassment. The students looked at me like they were waiting for the most interesting part of the show to begin. I didn't want to cause a scene. I pulled off my shirt, standing there in just my singlet. I used my own shirt to wipe the stain off the jacket of the so-called Enigma, my hands tight with restraint. Each swipe felt like swallowing my pride whole. Desmond watched me closely, just intensely focused. I apologized, I said quietly. You got your jacket cleaned. That's enough. For a moment the air felt heavy. Then Desmond glanced at my now stained shirt. He turned and walked away, his followers falling in line behind him like shadows. I stood there, heart pounding, humiliation burning inside me. I brought out my hoodie I had kept inside my bag because of the cold. I slipped it on and ignored the cameras. Days after that coffee incident, my initial assessment of Desmond Scott proved to be unfortunately accurate. He was a walking, talking, perfectly sculpted red flag. He exuded an air of entitlement that was almost comical. He expected preferential treatment and he got it. He breezed through classes, rarely attending, yet somehow always acing the exams. Rumor had it he had a private tutor who was also a professor. But it wasn't just the privilege that bothered me. It was the way he treated people. He was charming when he wanted to be, but his charm was a weapon, used to manipulate and control. And the way he flirted with the Omegas, it was predatory. He'd shower them with attention, gifts, and promises, only to discard them when he got bored. I saw the hurt in their eyes, the way they try to hide their disappointment. It made my blood boil. One afternoon I was studying in the library when I saw him. He was leaning against a bookshelf, talking to a beautiful Omega named Clara. She was a sweet girl, always smiling, always kind. Desmond was leaning in close, his voice low and seductive. He was running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, and Clara was practically melting. I couldn't help myself. I actually wanted to take revenge for the other day. I walked over, interrupting their little nonsense. "Desmond," I said, my voice deliberately neutral. "Got a minute?" He turned, his expression shifting from charming to annoyed. "What is it?" "Just wanted to borrow a book," I said, gesturing vaguely towards the shelves. "But I see you're busy." He gave Clara a dismissive smile. "We'll continue this later, darling." Then turning back to me he said, "What do you want?" "Just wondering if you've finished the reading for Professor Davies' class," I said, knowing full well he hadn't. He narrowed his eyes. "Why do you care?" "Just curious," I said, enjoying the way his facade was starting to crack. "You know, since you're so busy." He glared at me for a moment, then sighed. "Fine. I'll see you later, Clara." He turned and walked away, leaving Clara looking confused and slightly deflated. "Thanks," Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. "Anytime," I replied, giving her a small smile. "He's a bit of a handful." She chuckled, a genuine sound that warmed me. "You have no idea." That was the first time I felt a flicker of something other than annoyance towards Desmond. It was a sense of responsibility, perhaps? Or maybe just a stubborn refusal to let him get away with his games. The following weeks were a blur of lectures, late-night study sessions, and the constant, unavoidable presence of Desmond Scott. He was everywhere. In the library, in the cafeteria, even in the gym, effortlessly dominating the basketball court. It was exhausting. I, on the other hand, was trying to maintain a low profile, focusing on my studies and avoiding the social whirlwind that swirled around him. I found solace in the quiet corners of the campus, the hidden gardens, and the deserted library stacks. I was determined to make the most of my scholarship, to prove that I belonged here regardless of my background. One rainy afternoon, I was hunched over my laptop in the library, wrestling with a particularly challenging economics problem. The air was thick with the scent of old books and brewing coffee, a comforting aroma that usually helped me focus. But today my mind was elsewhere, replaying my brief interactions with Desmond. Why was he so intriguing? And why did I find myself constantly analyzing his every move? Suddenly, a shadow fell over my desk. I looked up to see Desmond standing there, a mischievous glint in his eyes. He was holding a steaming mug of coffee. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing towards the empty chair. I hesitated, then shrugged. "Suit yourself." He settled into the chair, placing the mug on the table. "Rough day, I guess?" he asked, his gaze fixed on my furrowed brow. "You could say that," I replied, gesturing towards the complex equations on my textbook. "This physics stuff is trying to kill me." He chuckled. "Don't worry, it gets easier. Or at least, you get better at pretending you understand it." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "So, what are you working on?" I explained the problem, surprised by his genuine interest. He listened intently, asking insightful questions and offering helpful suggestions. To my astonishment, he actually seemed to understand. "You're surprisingly good at this," I admitted, feeling a grudging respect. He grinned. "I have my moments. Besides, I find the logic of physics fascinating." He paused, his gaze meeting mine. "Sounds familiar, doesn't it?" I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Maybe," I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. We spent the next hour discussing, debating theories, and sharing our perspectives. I found myself drawn into the conversation, forgetting my initial reservations. Desmond was intelligent, witty, and surprisingly down-to-earth. He was also incredibly charming. As the rain continued to fall outside, the library transformed into a cozy haven. The silence was broken only by the rustling of pages and the occasional shared laugh. I found myself enjoying his company, feeling a connection that I hadn't anticipated. When it was time to leave, Desmond stood up, his gaze lingering on mine. "I enjoyed that, Edwin," he said, his voice low. "Perhaps we could do it again sometime?" I nodded, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and apprehension. He smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "I'll see you around." As he walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if I had misjudged him. The following weeks were different. We started meeting regularly to study, but the sessions quickly evolved into something more. We'd find ourselves in the library, the hidden gardens, or even just walking around campus, lost in conversation. We talked about everything. We also talked about his family, his ambitions, and the pressures that came with his privileged life. The tension between us was palpable, a constant undercurrent of unspoken desires. His gaze lingered a little too long, his touch a little too casual. He'd brush my arm as he passed or lean in close to whisper a joke. Each interaction was a calculated move, a subtle test of boundaries. I, for my part, was playing the game as well. I allowed myself to be drawn in, to enjoy the thrill of the chase. I reveled in his attention, the way his eyes lit up when he saw me, the way his voice softened when he spoke my name. I knew I was walking a dangerous line, but I couldn't resist the pull. One evening we were studying in his lavish dorm room. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne and the soft glow of the setting sun. We were supposed to be reviewing for an upcoming exam, but our focus was elsewhere. The books lay open on the table, untouched. Desmond was sitting on the edge of his desk, watching me with a predatory gleam in his eyes. I was sitting on the plush sofa trying to appear nonchalant, but my heart was pounding in my chest. "You know," he said, his voice low and husky, "you're incredibly frustrating, Edwin." I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. He chuckled, the sound sending shivers down my spine. "You're intelligent, witty, and undeniably attractive. But you're also resistant. You keep me at arm's length." I shrugged, trying to appear unaffected. "I'm just not easily impressed, Desmond." He pushed himself off the desk and walked towards me, his movements slow and deliberate. He stopped in front of the sofa, his gaze locked on mine. "Is that it?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Or are you afraid?" I met his gaze, refusing to back down. "Afraid of what?" He leaned closer, his face inches from mine. I could feel his breath on my skin, the heat of his body radiating towards me. "Afraid of what you might discover?" he murmured, his voice laced with a hint of danger. He reached out and gently cupped my cheek, his thumb tracing the curve of my jaw. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through me, a wave of pure, unadulterated desire. I closed my eyes, unable to resist the pull any longer. "Maybe," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He leaned in and kissed me, a slow, deliberate kiss that stole my breath away. His lips were soft and demanding, his tongue exploring my mouth with a possessive hunger. I responded instinctively, deepening the kiss, losing myself in the moment. We drove to his apartment that night. The kiss deepened, becoming more urgent, more demanding. His hands moved from my face to my back, pulling me closer, molding my body to his. I responded in kind, my hands finding their way into his hair, pulling him closer, wanting more. The world narrowed to the feel of his lips on mine, the taste of him, the scent of his cologne. I was lost in a sea of sensation, drowning in the intoxicating pleasure of his touch. He broke the kiss, his breath ragged, his eyes blazing with a raw intensity. "Edwin," he breathed, his voice thick with desire. "I want you." I didn't hesitate. "Then take me," I replied, my voice trembling. He smiled, a predatory grin that sent a shiver of anticipation down my spine. He reached for my shirt, his fingers fumbling with the buttons. I helped him, eager to shed the layers that separated us. The clothes fell away, discarded on the floor. His gaze devoured me, his eyes lingering on every inch of my exposed skin. I felt a blush creep up my neck, but I didn't care. I was his and he was mine. He kissed me again, his lips trailing down my neck, his teeth nipping at my skin. I arched my back, lost in the pleasure, my hands gripping his shoulders. He moved lower, his mouth tracing a path down my chest, his tongue teasing my nipples. I gasped, my body writhing with pleasure. He knew exactly what he was doing, how to drive me wild. He knelt before me, his gaze locked on mine. He reached for my belt, his movements slow and deliberate. I watched him, my heart pounding in my chest, my body trembling with anticipation. He unbuckled my belt, then unzipped my pants, slowly, teasingly. He pulled them down, revealing my erection. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of lust and adoration. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his voice husky. He took me in his mouth, his tongue swirling around me, driving me to the brink of ecstasy. I moaned, my hands gripping his hair, lost in the pleasure. He continued to tease and torment me, bringing me closer and closer to the edge. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cried out, my body convulsing with pleasure. He pulled away, his eyes blazing. He stood up and reached for a condom, his movements efficient and practiced. He returned to me, his gaze locked on mine. He entered me slowly, deliberately, filling me completely. I gasped, feeling a wave of pleasure wash over me. He began to move, his rhythm slow and steady at first, then building in intensity. I met his thrusts, lost in the rhythm, lost in the moment. We moved together, our bodies locked in a primal dance. The world faded away, leaving only the two of us, lost in the heat of passion. Finally we reached the peak, our bodies convulsing with pleasure. We collapsed together, breathless and spent, our bodies intertwined. I had surrendered. I was his. And I wouldn't have it any other way. If you enjoyed this spicy BL, please like the story, drop a comment of your favorite part, and please don't forget to subscribe for more BL stories like this. Thanks for watching till the end.